Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patrons, Ron E, James D, and Montana H. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. First up today, on Friday, I shared a Tesla rumor that they may have started a new semiconductor company in China in which they owned around a 5% stake. But as of now, it seems like this NACS semiconductor company is a fake thing. So for now, I would proceed as if this rumor is not true. At least in the short term, this is one of the bigger storylines to watch for Tesla. So COVID cases are spiking in certain regions in China. Mass lockdowns like we saw in Shanghai in Q2 of this year are still maybe unlikely. But even if Giga Shanghai doesn't have to do a full-blown lockdown, there's a chance that again the supply chain is disrupted even further. Over the weekend, there was some protesting taking place against China's zero COVID policy. Unfortunately for us outside of China, it's nearly impossible to be able to tell for sure how widespread these protests really were. In case you're wondering why some protesters are holding up blank pieces of white paper, it basically means they don't have to use any words because everybody should know what they are protesting, mainly pushing back against the zero COVID policies and the lack of free speech in the area. As far as we can tell right now, it looks like Giga Shanghai is still operating normally. However, there are some reports that some employees are currently being confined to staying at home, but their shifts are reportedly being covered by other workers who are not under confinement. This is definitely a developing story almost hour by hour at this point, but we know that Tesla has been through this before, so they'll be more prepared next time around. And Tesla has been building up its inventory. This data was compiled by both Matthias and the accountant, just showing that Tesla has been building up its raw materials. Now, this can be attributed to both the ramps at Berlin and Austin, but at least in part to building up inventory in Shanghai in case there are future lockdowns ahead. And VW has already been forced to pause production in Chengdu. VW has put holds on 2 of 5 production lines at the facility, citing a lack of parts. So again, in the short term, just something to keep an eye on. In some more exciting news, building permits have been filed for the Tesla Hollywood Diner in California on Santa Monica Boulevard. According to Marco on Twitter, a total of 7 new permits have been submitted since the beginning of the month, including one for the demolition of the existing building. It also looks like Tesla is set to officially launch in Thailand next month in December. So far, I have not been able to find anything about what models will enter this market first and what the price points will be. But there is a Thai Motor Expo taking place from December 1st to the 12th, so maybe Tesla gives us some more information during that time frame. From Drive Tesla Canada, it looks like Tesla has figured out a way to figure out if somebody is using a defeat device when it comes to autopilot and FSD, but we don't really know how they're doing it. Per the usual, Tesla Scope has found some new code saying that the software can detect if at least some of these devices are being used, and this info has been corroborated by Tesla service employees. Like I said, we really don't know how Tesla is determining this right now, but the guesses online are that it has to do with how the pressure is being applied. If the software thinks you're using a defeat device, it can now initiate a forced disengagement, which will result in a strike. Alright guys, so holiday season is officially here, and in case you're looking for a thoughtful and a very unique gift, I would highly encourage you to check out MOVA. Yes, they're the sponsor of this video, but a while back I got 2 of these globes, one for my wife, one for my mother-in-law, and they absolutely love them. These are not your average globe. They spin using a first-of-its-kind technology using light of any kind. Each globe has a hidden magnet to interact with the Earth's magnetic field. No batteries, no cords. They have a huge selection, and yes, they have Mars. I was able to get you guys 10% off both the 6 and 8.5 inch MOVA globes if you use my coupon code Electrified at movaglobes.com, linked below. Thanks to MOVA, and thanks to all of you for supporting the channel. So what do we make of this one? New report saying that Tesla is working on a revamped Model 3 dubbed Project Highland. So is this true, and what could it be? The focus of this secret project would be to reduce the number of components and complexity in the interior of the Model 3 while focusing on features that Tesla buyers value, like the display. Of course, this first part isn't really news. Tesla is constantly trying to reduce the number of parts. The best part is no part. And with the Model 3, at some point we've been expecting both front and rear gigacasts, eventually a structural battery pack, maybe eventually a yoke steering wheel, maybe removing the stalks. So it could be things that aren't really new, but just what we've seen in other vehicles implemented already. However, the report is also saying that the Model 3's exterior and powertrain performance could be changed, and they're expecting these changes to go into production at both Shanghai and Fremont, where they actually make Model 3s, in the third quarter of 2023. This is the timeline for Giga Shanghai, but they said it's not clear when this new production could happen at Fremont. That's basically all the information they really gave. So again, we know that Tesla is always iterating and making small tweaks and changes. They don't do model years like traditional automakers. And Tesla wants to drive down the cost of the Model 3 to have as many variants under that 55,000 cap for the Inflation Reduction Act when it comes to sedans. Personally, I would not expect any massive exterior design changes with the Model 3. It's obviously still selling very well. I think this is more, again, from a manufacturing standpoint, trying to remove the parts, everything that I mentioned earlier, gigacast, structural pack, removing stock, maybe going to a yoke, things like that. I would also add this most likely will just be something that happens organically with time, like Tesla has been doing. So I wouldn't expect any new event or some new unveil for this new Model 3. Again, it's just a name for some of the projects that they're working on behind the scenes. That would be my guess. Speaking of those changes, to date, many people have complained that Tesla's auto high beam feature has been so bad it's almost unusable. Well, good news, in 2022.40, at least some users are experiencing a much better user experience with Tesla's auto high beams. This is just a handful of anecdotes from a few users, but very clearly part of this update was indeed to fix some of the problems with the auto high beams. I'll share this video from Raphael linked below if you want to check it out. Hopefully everybody out there is getting more and more excited for the Tesla Semi delivery event, where we should get a lot more information, confirmation of specs, fingers crossed. Martin Viecha said it might be his favorite Tesla product because most people in the investment community, specifically large holders, didn't think that a Class 8 truck could do 500 miles of range fully loaded. Here we are, it looks like they can actually do it. I say that because of this. Over the weekend, Elon said Tesla team completed a 500-mile drive with a Tesla Semi weighing in at 81,000 pounds. To be fair, he didn't clarify if this was on a single charge, but that would definitely be my assumption. Previously, for trucks, there was an 80,000 pound gross weight limit. So if you saw that number from Tesla, theirs was 81,000 fully loaded. How does that work? Well, back in 2019, the government signed this new Consolidated Appropriations Act into law. This just says that trucks powered by electric batteries may actually exceed the weight limit on the power unit by up to 2,000 pounds, meaning 82,000 pounds. However, you have to remember, not every single Tesla Semi delivery is going to be with a full payload in terms of weight. So if Tesla did go 500 miles on a single charge with a full payload, that would be a massive accomplishment. So from here, it's just, please Tesla, give us some detail with charging, cost per mile. We just need to know the actual stats. And to Bill Gates, I would say,
people don't forget,
because he said electric vehicles will probably never be a practical solution for things like 18-wheelers. Electricity works when you need to cover short distances, but we need a different solution for heavy, long-haul vehicles. Elon had strong words for Bill at the time, saying he has no clue. Fast forward to now, and Elon said he, meaning Bill Gates, can drive it himself if he wants. Bloomberg put together some eye-opening data showing us where Model Ys are the most and least expensive around the world, and the discrepancies are maybe bigger than you would think. The top two most expensive places right now to buy a Model Y, Singapore and Israel, both over $100,000 US equivalent. These of course are all starting prices for the Model Y. Looking at the bottom of the list, you can get a Model Y for under $45,000 in mainland China, Slovakia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Main point being, you can buy 2.5 Model Ys in mainland China for the same price you would pay for one in Singapore or Israel. Bear in mind, this is data before certain import taxes or levies, because a Model Y could then go over $180,000 in Singapore after these levies. Last week, we did a deep dive on Tesla in South Korea. Just want to add a few extra notes to that convo. We talked a lot about the positives of the next Gigafactory being in South Korea. Tesla's already using a lot of parts made by Korean companies. The country almost has a full supply chain for EVs, and individuals in South Korea are huge retail Tesla stockholders, owning around $9 billion worth of shares. A few months ago, we actually reported on how a lot of South Korean investors are champions of going all in on Tesla stock, and it's become part of the culture. But because it's always good to hear the other side, I wanted to add this. South Korea is known as having some of the strongest labor unions in the world. One professor at a university said, "I'd put the chance of a new Tesla Gigafactory in Korea at 0. And look, personally, I don't at all agree with this last statement. It's definitely not at 0, even if it is low, but thought it was worth passing along. Just a quick one, Liz Wheeler was debating if Apple and Google actually removed Twitter from their app stores, would Elon make his own smartphone? To which he said, "I certainly hope it does not come to that, but yes, if there is no other choice, I will make an alternative phone." Personally, I really don't think this will happen. Elon has said many times that phones are really things of the past and that he thinks Neuralink is the future. I don't necessarily agree with all of that. So I view this statement from Elon more as a warning to Apple and Google. I would rather Tesla focus its engineering talent on vehicles and energy and not try to enter an already very crowded cell phone market. Although yes, it's also true if Tesla did make a cell phone, I would most likely end up with one. In a recent flyover from Tobias Lind, he showed us a Quicksilver Model Y with a white interior, the first one spotted, hopefully a good sign of Giga Berlin continually expanding its production capabilities. Inside EVs compiled some data from Adamas Intelligence, who does different research in different areas. I just wanted to show you this one point. There's been many headlines about how BYD is crushing Tesla, selling way more electric vehicles, but we know about half of BYD's sales are hybrids, and they're not making nearly as much profit per vehicle as Tesla, especially without subsidies. Look at this data for September. Tesla sold 190.2 thousand BEVs, equating to 13.9 gigawatt hours of batteries essentially deployed. BYD sold a very comparable number of electric vehicles, which also includes plug-in hybrids, about 2,000 more, but the batteries deployed from that number of vehicles for BYD only 6.7 gigawatt hours. And I won't read this to you, but for data from January 2021 to September of 2022, here are those same figures. In short, Tesla is deploying roughly twice the number of batteries in terms of gigawatt hours as BYD. I just wanted to hammer home the point that BYD and Tesla are not the same. This isn't news, but I loved this tweet from Holmars. He just said, "This is the power of Tesla's vertical integration, designing the car, the software, the charging network, etc." and shared this picture where it shows rerouting to a less busy supercharger. It's these little features that in the long run will set Tesla apart. In case you're wondering how Elon really feels about ESG, he said, "ESG is the devil." Many of us were expecting this to be the case, but Aptera has made it official. They will be using the Tesla charging connector, which is now called the North American Charging Standard. In a Thanksgiving email to investors and reservation holders, that email said, "We look forward to incorporating NACS in our SEVs." SEV is solar electric vehicle. It looks like Hyundai is racing to set itself up to capitalize on the Inflation Reduction Act. We know that they're building a facility in Georgia to build electric vehicles. They had also announced a new battery factory with SK here in the States. And now there's a rumor that they're going to build 2 new battery facilities in the United States, this time with LG. This is not yet confirmed or official, but these 2 new battery factories with LG would each have the capacity to produce 35 gigawatt hours of battery every year, enough for 1 million EVs combined. We'll see if it actually happens, but Hyundai is clearly not playing games. GM's president Mark Royce basically said they're playing the long game when it comes to pricing of EVs, so they say they're not going to try to gouge the customer, taking advantage of this super high demand and the low supply, charging higher prices to boost margins, saying they want to price their EVs basically at par with the ICE vehicles and win customers in the long term. Look, it's great in theory, but how long can GM sell vehicles at a loss is the question with an investor base they need to cater to. Mark said, "Our job is to offer really good vehicles at appropriate segment pricing that doesn't cost anybody any more money than what they were paying to go into an ICE segment. We're in the long game and we're going to create customers for life." It's one thing to talk about it, now let's see if they can be about it. Drive Tesla Canada is now saying that this much anticipated third shift at Giga Berlin that was originally going to happen this year, but then it was delayed until Q1 2023, well, the word is now it's going to happen in the middle of December. DTC said last week Giga Berlin hit a new single-day production record of 550 cars, which would be enough for around 3,300 per week. Remember, the next level goal at Giga Berlin has been 5,000 cars per week, so they're feeling like they're close enough to hitting that number where the third shift now makes sense. They're saying the third shift would take Giga Berlin to 24-hour per day production, which in time will be able to get them to that 5,000 car per week figure. I would just add, reporting on this third shift has been all over the map depending on what source you're watching. However, if this is true, of course, it's bullish news for current production from Giga Berlin. JB Straubel was on the Shift podcast talking for about 40 minutes, so I just want to give you my biggest takeaways. There wasn't anything groundbreaking in here, but JB said making cathodes is surprisingly technically challenging, and it's even surprised JB how hard it really is. He said the rate of ramping lithium production will be a problem and we will see big challenges in the supply chain. There has been an underinvestment in mining and refining, and this has a long lead time, so at some point in the future these challenges will arise. He commented on the Inflation Reduction Act, saying it's bold legislation, but it has caused a lot of rapid changes in the industry and some major shifts. Most OEMs are indeed revisiting their supply chain choices. And he said the USA still is very much not caught up with the rest of the world, but this is a good step to begin to start catching up. But right now, the US has virtually no battery supply chain. JB was asked about all of these OEMs now starting new energy businesses, and he said it was kind of odd and that many of them are getting into this space without much of a plan to actually make it all happen. And lastly, on battery swapping, JB said he generally thinks it will not be a big part of the electric future and thinks it's less relevant with charging speeds continually increasing and charging networks continually growing, but it may have a place in fleet applications with set routes. Full conversation will be linked below. Last up for today, Munro uploaded a new video talking about the Rivian R1S and their first impressions. Corey and Sandy both really had excellent things to say about this vehicle. It does cost around $92,000, but they both said the features that you get at that price point are actually a really good value and the car is priced well. Sandy actually said he was considering trading in his truck for a vehicle like this. They were very pleased with the space in the third row seating because most cars that try to do this, it's more of a gimmick. Nobody can actually fit in the back unless you're a small child. Not the case in the R1S. They said the materials were all very high quality. Overall, very good review. So great to hear, as of course I'm rooting for Rivian to succeed. Don't forget, check out MOVA linked below if you want to find a special and a unique gift for a certain someone. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.